it's just a giant hoax.
My God, are you still talking?
What's up, everybody? This is Conscience with the Punk Rock Poetry Podcast, sitting here with my good friend of a long time, my companion, Mike, across the country. We're on different sides of the country right now, but we're doing this podcast. He's with the Digital Academies. You can look us up on YouTube and subscribe right here. We're doing Joe Rogan on UFOs, a fun subject to freak out on with Jim Norton and Sam Roberts. We're going to review this video.
Let's do it, buddy. Nice to see you.
What we think.
How
right,
I think you a lot when these stories break that all this UFO stuff, which you've been pretty involved in, and you got the big interviews with those pilots. You talked to those guys.
See why I thought this was interesting? I just watched the first bit and then I was like, oh, I should save this because he's talking to Rogan about his when he had on those guys that we watched the thing, like when he had on George Knapp and Lazar and
like our original Aliens podcast.
Yeah, the other one we did just a couple times ago.
Right,
guys. With the San Diego incident, is that where it was on the Nimitz or something?
Commander Fravor. Yeah, I actually talked to Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp yesterday, and it goes up today. It's probably out right now. And that's a pretty heavy podcast. George Knapp is a journalist who broke the Bob Lazar story in 1989. He's a legit investigative journalist for Las Vegas. He catches the mob and bad guys and scam artists and stuff. Like, he's a legit journalist and has been his whole career, and was real hesitant to take on that story because it seems so bonkers. In 1989, Bob Lazar saying he's working on back engineering UFOs, and they work on this element that's only theoretical, and this element allows them to bend gravity and fucking shoot from point to point almost instantaneously. Everybody's like, you're crazy. But then as
so crazy, man.
Videos have come out that have shown these crap.
That is what we saw with that TikTok thing, right?
What's that?
That's like, okay, I heard someone explain it, and it finally kind of made sense. It's like, I think I told you this maybe, but the idea of like it's not being shot, it's actually
moving,
falling into space that it's clearing. It's like an anti-gravity thing, right? That we don't. But we're talking about like a sci-fi kind of concept, right?
Right, totally.
But this is what Rogan's saying is so interesting. Is like, it's crazy to see. Sorry, I just got flying around here. It's crazy to see like military fighter pilots being baffled by the aerodynamics of the craft, right?
Right.
Like, these aren't just random people.
These are trained professionals.
These are the best of the best.
These are anomalies in the flight patterns.
Right.
Crafts, and shown them with that Tic Tac craft that was off of San Diego that was blocking their tracking devices, and then went from 60,000 feet to zero feet above sea level in less than a second. They have no idea what the fuck.
Shit.
They have no idea what it's doing. And the guys down there in San Diego who are in the military were saying, we're seeing them all the time. We see them every couple weeks. They don't know what they are. They think they're docking with something under the water sometimes. These are rock solid soldiers. I mean, these are
some kind of like deep underwater. Do you want to pause that for a second?
Right.
Of American military.
Docking at something like some kind of deep underwater if they can move 44,000 feet in 1 second, I'm sure they can get to the bottom of the ocean pretty damn quick. You know what I'm saying? In the depths that we don't search, something could be out there.
Oh, that is insanely mind blowing.
Yeah.
And like,
that's where they're hiding, is in the oceans.
I want to just, anyone listening to this, remind everyone to think of the idea that like it could also be a different country's military, right?
Yes, of course. That's always an option. That's always a possibility.
Yeah, but it also could maybe, if it's not that, if it is that, that's a huge issue because it's blocking like he said, it's blocking their technology.
Oh, it becomes a huge political fiasco.
That's an act of war.
If it's an alien, it's just kind of like, holy shit, what do we do?
Then who knows what it is, right? That's
and they probably, if they got establishments in the ocean, they've probably been here for thousands and thousands of years, maybe millions of years. Maybe this is their planet. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
maybe we're living on their planet.
It's a whole Pandora's box of like things to speculate about, right?
Yeah, maybe we're like their pets. You ever consider that we could be their pets? These aliens dock in our ocean at these mass underwater, deep sea, unexplored, subaqueous towns and cities with power sources of anti-gravity theoretical elements. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And then we're their pets. We're just their pets up on the surface. We're their game. Who knows, man? Who knows? Let's keep on watching this.
My God, are you still talking?
Sorry, buddy.
Military. They're not bullshit artists. Like if you meet Commander Fravor, that guy there's nothing about that guy at all that's a bullshit artist. That guy is a rock solid military man. And when he tells you he's flying a fighter pilot and there's something that does things in the sky that he can't explain, and no one knows how they do it. No one understands it. There's no visible method of propulsion. And this thing goes from 60,000 feet down to 1 in a second. And that's just how fast the radar registers it. So they don't even really know how fast it was moving. It might have been instant.
Now, let me ask you, can they get this? Do they have any other?
It might have been instant.
It's like their technology can't recognize it as instant. It saw it go from here to here. It had to be a point something of, but he's saying like that maybe it's like
it's as fast as the rate. It's only as fast. That's probably only because it stayed stationary in 2 points in space, in the air. Like if it's moving, the radar probably can't even pick it up. It probably read that transference as fast as it could, and it just read 2 solid beats because the thing slowed down and stopped moving as fast as it can.
It's almost like the least it can register or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's not really any saying. Joe made a good point because there's not really any way to tell how fast it's moving.
Yeah, exactly.
Their video, that stuff that's not released. There's got to be something they track. If they have that video, they have to have other stuff that be either the military.
Sorry, there's no way to tell exactly, but that it's definitely like under point of a something of a second, right? Like it's. Man, no matter how much of a point of whatever, it's like these are fighter pilots saying the thing basically went from here to here immediately.
Instantly.
And like, what the hell is that? It wasn't a bomb or a weapon. And then it like moved again, right? So it's not like it was like a dropped thing or something.
It can do it willingly.
It was moving
perfectly.
And if you're wondering what we're talking about, if you look at either of our channels, back a couple videos, we did about the TikTok thing, and we actually showed the footage right near the beginning of that video.
Terry isn't releasing.
Good question. The fact that they're releasing any of these videos is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Because they're releasing these things, and you can hear the pilots, their voiceovers going, "Holy shit! What is that? What the fuck is that?" Like these guys are freaking out. You could hear in their voice. They're not actors. Right. They're fighter pilots, experienced military pilots that are seeing things move in a way that defies all of our understanding of propulsion systems. And they're like, what the fuck is that?
You can't write those guys can't be written off or dismissed because they understand propulsion, they understand lift, and when they have no idea what they're looking at. Those guys I find very convincing. I don't believe a lot of UFO stuff, but those guys I can't not believe.
I would bet the house on Commander Fravor. I bet the house on that guy. The guy who was on my podcast, I bet the house that what he is saying is 100% true. What he is saying, he saw. He's not making any of it up.
Do you think they know? Because I know Snowden you asked, and it was so interesting that he hadn't found any evidence, which could just mean that any evidence they have is kind of like on a circular a system that isn't accessible from the outside. But do you think there are things that they know that they're not saying, or do you think that we pretty much know what they know at this point?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. Yeah. I wish I knew. I wish it made sense. It just doesn't make sense. It seems like I bet the government knows almost as little as we do. That's what I bet.
Yeah, me too.
I think very compartmentalized, and I bet.
I think the secret is that they don't know as much as we would think they would know.
That's exactly it. They don't want to disclose that they don't know what the hell is going on. They don't want to disclose that and start panic.
Well, it's a national security issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
To a level that's not even comparable to anything really.
No, exactly. There's a big secret going on with how little they know. I love that. That's perfect.
Well, it's either alien or other country, foreign technology breaching U.S. airspace.
Yeah.
That's
Totally.
Incredibly alarming.
Yeah, no, either way, it's incredibly alarming. Yeah, incredibly alarming is a good way to put it.
Bet in some very high-level meetings, this is discussed. And I bet if you're below a certain pay grade, you never hear it. And I bet there's a need to know basis in terms of what they've found out, what's possible, what's bullshit, what are they putting out just to send smoke signals so Russia thinks we have. I mean, I'm sure there's
definitely a lot of smoke signaling too, right? That's another important point. There's a lot of on purpose misinformation.
Right.
To
So
kind
you
of
think there's a lot of propaganda going on around it?
No, I think there's a lot of. So think if you actually. Okay, so let's just put on our conspiracy hats. Imagine if you actually were a government and you were hiding technology. It would make sense that you were also deliberately misleading people and maybe like even setting up, giving people stories that were going to turn out to be fake, and then it kind of discredits the whole movement.
Yeah.
And like you're basically co-opting it by just trying to discredit it.
Like Roswell was just a bunch of orchestrated propaganda.
Or maybe maybe Roswell was real, and then they started doing other stuff to make the whole thing look like a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think all Rogan's pointing out is like, it's important to keep in mind that there might be people on all sides manipulating perception.
Right. And which is really easy to do now, especially if you have like a verified channel. You're instantly going to get thousands and thousands and thousands of views from tons and tons and tons of people. It's easy to get ideas popular these days.
That's why I think it's like more and more important, things like integrity and character. And like, that's why I think showing Rogan, like, I don't know, he's kind of earned the trust that if this guy's saying like that Favors guy is like, he'd bet his house on that Favors guy.
Yeah.
It's like Rogan's a pretty strong endorsement. As strong as anybody.
Yeah, as strong as anybody. Yeah, totally. All right, let's roll it.
Games and propaganda, things get manipulated in terms of military might, and but I think there's clearly some indication that something's going on that they don't understand. And if this thing is from another planet, it's probably better than if this thing is from Russia or China. Like if Russia or China can do something that we can't explain like that, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Worried. This is what
I thought that instantly with this, man. That's almost scarier.
Yeah. And have we heard, has there been any release information of how big this thing was physically? Like how big it was? Like what, if you could do this with like warships, like arsenals of weapons on a ship that can do this movement? Or is it like some kind of basic pod that can move like this? Or can you move entire huge structures like this? How big is this thing? That's what I want to know. How big could it be? I mean, really. It looks small on the radar.
I was trying to like look up if I could find some guesses even.
Yeah, guesses of how long it is and how wide it is and what shape it is.
I'll just read this, man, because I just found something interesting like right away.
Okay.
In the 15
maybe say the website too that you're on.
I'm on NewYorkMagazine.com. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was this odd slow-moving object flying in groups of 5 to 10 off San Clemente Island, which is west of San Diego. That's so interesting because San Diego is like such an interesting place, right? Because I think that's like basically where the States meets Mexico. And I think it's like really military. There's a lot of like military people in San Diego. Okay.
I didn't know that. I don't know much about the States, dude, unfortunately.
At an elevation of 20,000 feet, moving at a speed of approximately 120 knots, that's 138 miles per hour, the cluster were too high to be birds, too slow to be conventional aircraft, and not traveling on any established flight patterns. Yeah. Here, man. The footage appears to depict what Fravor has identified as a 40-foot-long, white, oblong-shaped, hence Tic Tac, hovering somewhere between 15,000 and 15,000 and 24,000 feet in midair, and exhibiting no notable exhaust from conventional propulsion systems.
Okay.
So that's pretty.
So it's one of those like cigar-shaped UFOs they always talk about.
Yeah, and what they're saying is like if you see like a US like one of the Raptors, like I think they're the F-15 Raptors. I saw one at an air show in Toronto, and it's like that thing like it can like almost stand up like this.
Vertical.
But it's like shooting fire out of it almost. Like it's like the amount of jet fuel and the propulsion.
The amount of energy that needs to happen to do that type of maneuver.
Right, and like it has just on this website I'm looking at, it has the picture that we just saw of that footage, and it's like
so 40 feet long and weight.
40 foot. So a 40-foot long tic tac kind of thing, right?
So round at the ends.
Picture like a tic tac or a pill.
Yeah, tic tac. It's a giant tic tac.
Like
so it was
pill.
round on the ends. It was like cylindrical in some ways.
Yeah, cylinder. If you want to use
cylinder with rounded convex ends.
Yeah, and I have no idea about depth though, right? That's what it looks like. If I have no idea like
how wide it is, like the radius of it.
Because it could be super thin.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Yeah. So I mean, 40 feet long. That's probably as long as a lot of warplanes. You could pack a lot of weaponry on a ship like that. If other countries, if this is their technology, they'd be able to destroy anything without ever being able to be caught. They just in and out. Drop a nuke, but gone. Gone to the other side of the world in a second. Anyway, go on. Let's do it.
All right, buddy. I just hit you with let's just watch this last little bit and then.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right, man. I actually think the whole consideration of it being, and the reason we keep saying Russia and China is just because those are the main
that you'd expect. Maybe Japan too.
Yeah. But
maybe
I think
North Korea, dude.
I don't know if you were betting if it was not the States. That's the thing I was going to say before is there's also the possibility that it's elements of the U.S. government that the Pentagon don't even know about.
Yeah, totally rogue operations. CIA rogue operations.
It could be parts of the U.S. government declassifying stuff about a different part that it didn't even know was a different part.
Right. That
actually makes the most sense, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. To be honest,
it makes the most sense if it's anybody that it's the Americans, because just their spending and their military dominance, like it's not even close to anybody else. Like it'd be complete shock if it was a different country, right?
Yeah, technology is at its highest peak in the USA, so you'd imagine.
Especially
but that's
military.
But then you could talk about the idea of that we talked about earlier of purposeful suppression. Like suppressing this weapon and making stuff that isn't even close to what the USA has to hide this technology. Yeah. We can't even make planes as good as you. How are we going to come up with this and be burying it for something? Who knows why? Who knows what the ends are of this? What they're here for? What are they doing? Moving around at the speed of light.
And see, it's interesting, right? Because this video is called "A Fun Subject to Freak Out On," and that's so true, man. It's like, what's a funner topic than this? It's like, no matter, and not necessarily fun, but interesting. Like, no matter what the scenario is, it's fascinating. If it's China, it's fascinating and a whole world of problems. If it's Russia, it's fascinating and a whole world of problems. If it's a section within the states, basically telling on itself without knowing it's doing that, that's interesting for a whole bunch of reasons. If it's aliens, that's like the most interesting of all of them. If it's if it's some completely other thing, it's just so fascinating, the dynamics, right?
Yeah. Like maybe it's an animal. Imagine it was an animal. Think about it.
It was like a biological thing?
Biological, yeah. Like a living, breathing organism.
Snake.
Yeah, like a sky snake. Like a sky slug, man.
A space lizard.
Yeah, space lizard. This could be some kind of type of new evolution of animal. Let's do it.
Yeah.
George Knapp said on the podcast yesterday, he's like, the worry is that this technology is something that we can crack, and whoever cracks it first is going to have incredible superiority over the rest of the world. I mean, obviously, we all have nuclear bombs. We could blow each other up, period. But one of the things that they were talking about, George Knapp, was that these things have shown up around military facilities and lit up launch codes on intercontinental ballistic missiles, and then shut them down and disappeared. Like they've started launch codes.
started launch codes of ballistic missiles. How complicated do you think one of those launch codes are?
It's about as complicated as any encrypted thing in the world.
Yeah, the most encrypted.
The U.S. military's nuclear codes.
Or
they might be, who knows?
Ballistic missiles.
Yeah, intercontinental ballistic missile. So that's like a missile that can shoot across a continent. That's a missile that you could shoot from, whatever launch site in Houston or wherever and put it in Moscow through whatever window of the building you wanted.
That's crazy.
Right? Like,
yeah.
So they're saying that they were unknown craft flying over top, turning on them.
On the computers.
And then turning them back off and leaving.
Yeah, and just saying, "Hey, guess what we can do? Look at us. Try and figure us out. Look what we're able to do to you. We own you. We own you 100%." Why would the government be public?
Yeah, you look at that as a power move,
getting dominated. Yeah, it's like power. This is the reaction to a power struggle. And if you have that much power, you dominate anybody that you're with. So why not highlight your dominance and see what happens? And this is what's happened. Now they're revealing themselves to the general public. Who knows why? Who knows why? That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
Let's do it.
Codes where these people are freaking out. These people on the base like, holy fuck, we're going to start World War III. And then they take off. Like, this has happened apparently in more than one occasion, and they think it's happening in Russia too. They think they occasionally just show up and they want to see like what we do, like what are we doing? And the thing is, there's a big uptick of these right after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So throughout human history, there's been UFO sightings, but a lot of the UFO sightings came after the late 40s, after the bombs were dropped, and after all those experiments in the desert in Nevada. I mean, they blew up a lot of fucking nuclear bombs. I don't know if you've ever seen those tests.
And see, he's going to say something interesting. I think like what people it's important to remember too is like where the whole Area 51 alien stuff is and where all the nuclear bomb stuff is in U.S. military history, like all the Manhattan Project stuff and the Atomic Energy Commission. That's all in like the same geographic area in Nevada.
Yeah.
So it's like so it's just the setting is fascinating. That like setting of like the Cold War Nevada. Remember we talked about last time how it's like so unique and how the barren desert landscape creates almost like natural runways, and there's like just things about the features of Nevada, I guess, that when you fly overhead. I remember flying into Vegas the one time I've been to Nevada, and it's like, yeah, it's like when you're flying in, it's like Vegas is like a strip in the middle of like this. I don't know, someone else could explain it better,
flat?
But
it's mountainous.
I think it's like desertist, right? Really? And it's like, yeah, the Nevada deserts.
Nevada was mountainous. I did not know Nevada had deserts. So it's flat.
We should do a whole one on Area 51 and just get right into it. Like Groom Lake's like the part of Area 51 that was like that flat lake bed I was talking about that they used as the natural runway. Area 51 is just a set. It's like a topological or like geography word for a part of land in Nevada that's really close to where they were testing, like where the Nuclear Commission or the Atomic Energy Commission, whatever, was testing all the nukes.
Okay.
Yeah, like I probably just heard Rogan say this once, or like there's a lot of interesting stuff about Area 51.
Yeah.
We should look at this.
Yeah, let's plan to do a podcast on Area 51 very soon.
Yeah, and I read that book from someone that was on Rogan. She's a New York Times writer named Annie Jacobson on Area 51. It was like the best because I've been interested in aliens and Area 51 stuff like forever, and there's so much BS about that stuff out there. But I think her stuff was really interesting and really pushing this idea of like, don't underestimate the chances of this possibly being foreign military or even other branches of unknown.
Well, it sounds like talking about this theoretical element 115, I believe it is. What's it called? You know?
That's what it's called.
That Bob Lazar released, the theoretical element that was supposedly the fuel source of these things.
Yeah.
All it would take is one scientist, man. One scientist with a team of researchers figures this out, and then it's all of a sudden the world's biggest secret. For whatever country it could be. I'm really leaning towards another country's tech. I really am. I don't know about aliens. I think this could be worldly. I really do.
You know what's insane? When I just put in element 115, that's what it was, right? And so there's two things that come up. The second one is like from UFOfandom.com, whatever. And it talks about how Bob Lazar and all that stuff. The one above it is a Wikipedia link to a chemical called Moscovim. So just think of that word. It's like Moscow, like Russia, Moscow, I mean, and then VIUM. Moscovim is a synthetic chemical element with the symbol MC and atomic number 115. It was first synthesized in 2003 by a joint team of Russian and American scientists at the Joint Institute for Nuclear Research in Dubna, Russia. In December 2015, it was recognized as one of 4 new elements by the Joint Working Party of International Scientific Bodies, the IUPAC and the IUPAP, whatever that means.
But all I'm saying is that all it would take is one scientist somewhere in the world with some kind of lab in nuclear science. One stumbles across this element and it is able to create it. And then all of a sudden you have a power source that now you begin to understand. And it probably unlocks a lot of questions. It probably explains a lot of things to you once you find this chemical, like how it can be used.
Imagine all of a sudden we all just had free energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something like that.
Yeah, now the pyramids too, man. Like maybe that's what the pyramids had. They had this type of, because you know how they're all specifically placed across the world, and there's some theories that it was once an electricity source, like a non-physical electricity source, like electricity that was just radiated through the air and everyone could access it without any kind of hookup. It was just in the air. And I think that maybe, who knows, man, maybe that was part of this element 115. So maybe the Egyptians, we should look up Egyptians and element 115 sometime and see what comes up with that. Let's do a pyramid podcast.
Who the hell cares?
I'm just joking.
Let's do a pyramids podcast too.
I just actually was about to write it. I was going to say.
Let's just take this opportunity to say subscribe. This is Conscience. This is Professor Mike. Subscribe to our channels, the Digital Academy, and you're watching this video on my channel. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you'll get a whole bunch of different stuff that we do here. So.
Oh, I thought I was going to play this while you were talking. Keep going.
We're discussing aliens, man. We're discussing aliens,
man. So let's just do the last minute here.
Yeah, there's one like 45 seconds left.
Videos where you could see the map of the country and it shows you the year. And every year there's more and more nuclear bombs go off. Like, woo, there's a lot. They blew up a lot. And that's when the UFO sightings started really amplifying.
Which means that they may see. I always thought like, well, maybe we're thinking we see things because our technology gets better. So does science influence what we're really seeing, or are we really influencing what we think we're? But then it's like that makes sense. Maybe there was something to do with it. If they're legitimately UFOs, maybe it did have something to do with the fact that there was nuclear testing. That they either put us more on their radar, or they want to know exactly what it is.
Yeah, who the fuck?
I think what like nuclear and atom bombs is too, right? Is like splitting the kind of elements of the universe. It's almost like, so if there was like it would make sense that would be what they would notice of our activity.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be cool to have somebody that could really talk like the physics of that.
Physics of nuclear weapons?
Yeah. Or like why that specifically would be what would attract them. I think it makes sense. Because I think
if we can find some kind of nuclear physicist to talk about that. Do we know any physicists? Did we grow up with any?
There's physicists and there's nuclear fission and fusion, and one of them is atomic and one of them is nuclear, and I kind of forget. But it'd be interesting to talk about that kind of stuff. Yeah, we could do an episode
we should look into our friends on Facebook and see if we got a physicist friend.
I think I do actually have a family member that works at a power plant that I think I could talk to. But anyways, we'll chat about that off here. Okay. Let's watch this last like 8 seconds here.
It's fun. Yeah. It's a fun subject.
Yeah.
It's a fun one to freak out on.
That is totally a fun subject. That's crazy. So that was awesome, man. That opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. Joe Rogan on UFO is a fun subject to freak out on. Jim Norton and Sam Roberts. This is Conscience. We got Professor Maines.
My man.
We're signing out for the night. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We'll be bringing you a Bigfoot video soon. We got someone coming on to talk about big feet. Do you call them big feet, I guess? Bigfoots?
No, man. You can call it Bigfoot. You can call it a Yeti, a Sasquatch. You can call it a skunk ape. You can call it a anyways, we'll get raw.
So stay tuned for that. We also have plans to have a psychologist, a clinical psychologist on the show. We also got plans to have another person who is dealing with training, like physical and mental, spiritual training while in quarantine. We got a bunch of stuff coming up, so please make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and have a great night.